hosted by Kenneth Bob on Sundays from 4 to 5 p.m. only on Win Media SKN.
Pleasant good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to the bench meeting on today, the 9th of May, being celebrated across the world by families celebrating their mothers. And grateful that you would have taken at least an hour out of your times, your collective times, to be with us here on the bench meeting this afternoon. And the reward for your perseverance and your interest is that we have a very exciting guest with us this afternoon, one who needs no real introduction, but I have the honor this afternoon of doing so. He'll be joining us on phone. We have the Honorable Mr. John L. Powell, Minister of Sport, Youth, Education and Culture, among a myriad of other different responsibilities that he has, and someone whom I am honored to call also my friend and colleague of some 20 years, spanning university days until present. And if I don't know if he's online, I believe he's online. I want to say a warm welcome, John L., and it's exciting to have you with us this afternoon.
Good afternoon, Bob. Thank you for that very pleasing introduction. Pleasure to be here on the show with you today, and use the opportunity to wish all the mothers here in St. Kitts and Nevis and further feel pleasant, happy, healthy, happy Mother's Day today.
Yes, I do hope that you played your part in ensuring that would have happened on your side as well.
As far as I could,
yes.
And I think part of the reward for me was a nice 3-1 win today for United.
Yes. Well, needless to say, John is also a very ardent Manchester United fan. I mean, these are some of the things that we go way back in terms of our little back and forths and everything else on campus days with some of our other colleagues. But John, I know your time is extremely precious. So what I wanted to do, I mean, it's all good news, and it's all positive things surrounding the discussion around the CPL and everything else. So that's primarily why I wanted to get you here. And I thought, though, that I would sort of give the viewers or the listeners and viewers the opportunity to, hear from you in terms of your role, first of all, as it relates to sports, and maybe get an idea as to some of the things that you have taken on as part of your portfolio.
All right. Well, I guess really to start it off, I am the Minister of Sport, so I am responsible for ultimately for the entire Department of Sport and the development and, as I would put it, the philosophy of sports, so to speak, for the Federation at the moment. Having taken up the role almost a year ago now, time flies. I've been trying to craft my own vision for sport in St. Kitts and Nevis. And I think that what I'm trying to do is really based on just a couple of key things, which is to really facilitate greater sport development. By that I mean development not just for players, but for officials and coaches. Quite often we only see the players in sports, the athletes, and we forget about the officials. And we have so many officials who are doing so many good things.
Agreed.
Here in St. Kitts and Nevis. So particularly in that respect, I would love to expand the number of sports that our citizens are exposed to. Mm-hmm. And so just off the top of my head, things like swimming, for example,
yes.
I would love to be able to see introduced amongst some other, field hockey and some other sports that are being played in just about every other island surrounding us. And, we're not. And then thirdly, it would be in the areas of sport tourism.
Yeah.
We have been accustomed to things like hosting CPL and West Indies matches, but there's so much more that we can do. particularly now when we've been able to weather the COVID-19 pandemic so well. Everybody's looking at St. Kitts now, especially having made the CPL announcement. How do we get people to come to St. Kitts and Nevis, whether it be for tournaments such as the CPL, or just visiting teams, whether it be a baseball team from the US, a professional football team from the UK. These are all ways of getting persons to come and visit St. Kitts because of sports, whether it be athletes or fans coming from whether it be England, Australia, India, or here in the Caribbean. And so that is something I really want to develop as well.
That's something I've heard you. I mean, we have sat and discussed. I'm certain long before, since 2015 or so, when you were ambassador of sport, and
Right.
as you're right in saying that we are positioned uniquely because with sport tourism, you can invite persons here for a longer period, so you have a better, a greater capacity to manage the bubble, so to speak, in the sense that those persons, it's not a constant to and fro, but it's more longer term, which means that those teams can also invest a bit more. As you said, if it's fans, they would spend a bit more money now because have to stay a longer period of time on the island, and that is something that could bring some additional revenue.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the Department of Sport will be very shortly launching our sport tourism product using the tagline "Come Paradise," because it really is paradise. It was sort of amazing for me, maybe my second week as Minister with responsibility for sport, taking a drive with a team from the Department of Sports around the island. This was what was an unsuccessful bid for the CPL last year, but the ability to visit some of the grounds and really look at these grounds or cricket grounds, for example, from a different perspective.
Yes.
When you think about Molyneux and the Mount Lioniga in the background, and then on the other side of the field, you're looking at St. Bart's and St. Martin and the ocean. St. Paul's, where you see that you can almost reach out and touch Stacia. I mean, and you go around Verchilds with, old sugar mills and flamboyant trees on one end and the mountains in the back.
Yes.
It really is paradise, and people would want to come here, not just to play sport here, but to look at sports as well.
Agreed. So it'll be exciting to see some of the new initiatives and everything else in that regard. Are there any things currently happening now that maybe you wanted to let the public know of, so that if they wish to participate, or is it still a plan in the works, as it were?
Yeah. It's still in the works. We're still trying to finalize a couple of things, but we hope that there will be a lot of opportunities for locals to participate and benefit in different ways.
Okay. Well, the big news, Jonel, and everybody has been on the tip of everyone's tongues, for better or worse, is our successful acquisition of the bid for hosting the CPL 2021. And I was given a little heads up about it just about a few days prior to, but obviously for reasons you're not supposed to say anything. And then it was made announced, I think if I'm incorrect, last week Friday. So I said, well, for those of us who have been pleasantly surprised, but still wondering how did that come into fruition, maybe you could give us a little bit of an idea as to what was the thinking process behind it, the genius.
Well, it's something that has been probably a year in the making, and it really came out of the opportunity to host the entire tournament. That really was the most attractive aspect of it. You've seen the kind of economic activity that is generated when we have host 5 home matches, which last about a week every year, and we have all the different teams coming through. And we see, from catering to transportation to the bars and the restaurants and all of that, who benefit. People people have bars and booths at Warner Park. People like to look good, so they buy clothes, and the ladies were now interested in T20 go and get meals and
merchandise. Yep.
So, was that?
I was saying merchandise and stuff. Yes, and there's a lot of
merchandising and all of that, and so just knowing, obviously for logistical purposes, related to COVID-19, the tournament has to be played in one country, unlike traditionally with the island hop. And so since about a year ago, we were in discussions with CPL. There were some concerns about whether or not Trinidad would have been able to host last year. And so the cabinet did last year approve a bid to host the entire games. However, Trinidad did have an arrangement with CPL in place, and so that didn't happen for us. But I just never dropped the ball and kept in touch with CPL and discussions. And we, this time around, were able to successfully negotiate to host the entire tournament, 33 matches over the course of about 3.5 weeks. Players will be in, I think, 2 or 3 weeks in advance of that. Obviously, they have to go to the 14-day quarantine. And it's going to be a lot of opportunities for our people at a time when things are very difficult.
So, in terms of opportunities, we know that they would not be able to import the full support teams, whether it be the players themselves, the media, as they said, the officials that are going to be coming in. Is it a case where there's some sort of arrangement where locals would be able to supplement in some of the, provide some additional services in any of these particular fields?
Not necessarily, in that a lot of the people who come in as part of the CPL cohort, the majority of them are specialized individuals.
Okay.
These are persons who are specially trained to use certain equipment and that. Excuse me. What we have been able to do over the course of recent years was to supplement a lot of the services that were coming in. So that has been happening, I think, it's for some time now. But in terms of those who are coming in now, these are all specialized persons. We expect a cohort of about 230 to 240 persons, inclusive of the players.
Excellent. And in terms of, I noticed that you mentioned 33 games. This would mean also that you have to include training facilities and everything else. Is it that we're going to try and use some of these grounds that you would have mentioned, give them a bit of a facelift, and allow the teams to train at these facilities and all the matches? And how does Nevis fit into this, if it does at all?
Right. So all 43 of the tournament matches will be held at Warner Park.
Okay,
and
one
then
location.
Any training will happen at the one of or multiple of the other 6 first-class grounds that we have here in St. Kitts. A lot of people don't realize we have 7 first-class cricket grounds on St. Kitts alone.
Oh.
And so while we'll dedicate Warner Park to the tournament matches, the players will have access to the other facilities in order to train, practice, and all of that. And some of that will be allowed to happen during the 14-day quarantine, but within specialized bubbles.
Okay. What are the challenges do you see? Because obviously it has great potential to be a massive success. And, I'm immensely proud to be part and parcel, even if it's just, on the outside watching on, and because you wear your Patriot shirt every year, and you now have an opportunity to host the entire tournament at home. So it's exciting from a sporting perspective. But in your shoes now, what are some of the bigger challenges that you see, especially now with the time of a pandemic? Even though there is a little glimmer of hope in terms of the amount of vaccines and everything else, this is still dark days for many countries.
Well, you know, funny enough, there are not necessarily too many challenges that face us right now, and I knock on wood when I say that. EPL has, I mean, they have full expectations to comply with all of our protocols. As a matter of fact, the CPL protocols themselves, in many instances, exceed our own local protocols. So from a health perspective, there are really no challenges. So, for example, while they are expected to quarantine for the 14 days, CPL itself is imposing certain bubbles within the bubbles, so to speak. So, for example, the first few days, you have, I think, 3 or 4 bubbles of 3 or 4 persons. And then after a certain date, they're then allowed to integrate within the team, the whole team itself. And then you come out to the 14-day quarantine. Even in terms of testing, their testing requirements far exceed ours. So even after the 14 days, they will continue to do certain testing of players. So from a health perspective, we are very confident that we are able to facilitate. There will be absolutely no concessions when it comes to our protocols and our health policy here in St. Kitts. I think, if anything, it's really about logistics. It's really about logistics in terms of any potential or any actual training within the quarantine period. And so just maintaining the bubbles in terms of transportation, ensuring that persons understand that they can't go into the
general public,
into the actual grounds, training grounds during the quarantine period and that.
Okay. So it's more of a trying to and as you said, if CPL already has their protocols in place, and in some instances it may exceed, but they're willing to comply with all of ours and then some, then how we manage our logistics, as you said, in terms of assisting them being able to do what they do, would probably be the biggest challenge, and even that could be preempted with sufficient planning.
Absolutely.
And everything else. So in terms of persons who, because unfortunately when you get these type of good news, there's always a little bit of a negative tinge, and some persons tend to see the worst in what are the assurances then you're offering them based on what we have just discussed, as far as it relates to us be exposing ourselves from players coming from all different parts of the world, as have been rumored in some quarters?
Well, as we have been very successful. I think part of our success managing COVID-19 has been adhering to the policies.
Yes.
We have been having persons travel and visit St. Kitts. People have been vacationing in St. Kitts in quarantine. We are talking about trying to open up our economy, so to speak, in October. And so, we are very much prepared in terms of allowing persons to come in. We are making absolutely no concessions in terms of our policies. As it stands now, for example, we do have travel restrictions on persons coming out to the UK, for example, and India. So any players who are coming from these destinations, provided these restrictions continue, will just have to ensure that they spend 14 days somewhere else between where they're leaving from and coming to St. Kitts, if they're coming from one of these restricted areas.
So they have to make the adjustments prior to them even getting here.
Absolutely.
Okay. And I also, it was also mentioned a few days ago that, and I'm certain you must be aware that St. Kitts may also be hosting some of the World Cup qualifiers. I think toward the beginning of June. I think around June 4th.
That's correct. That's correct.
So that's almost a sort of a little rerun or a pre-run of some of the things that we're going to have to put in place before the big show come end of August. Definitely,
and these will actually be a little more tricky because these matches are going to actually be held within a a bubble within the quarantine period, unlike with the CPL, where the players would have undergone the 14 days and come out and been able to go to the park. So we are hopeful that we'll be able to host the home leg of the upcoming football qualifier. And I think that there are some other countries who may be interested in hosting their own home matches here in St. Kitts as opposed to home by them because of how well we are sitting right now in terms of COVID.
Excellent. That'll be excellent news. So they would almost be, even though they have access within our bubble, or we create a bubble for them. They have access and then they leave.
Correct.
So they don't necessarily have any way of.
So they come in, they do their thing within that bubble. They're here for a few days. There's no interaction with the outside world, so to speak, and then they leave. And everything is done within quarantine or within a bubble, a biosafe bubble.
Excellent. And but so then in truth and in fact, it's just really a case of we being properly prepared as it relates to us being able to host successfully some of these events. And a lot of it comes down to like you said, understanding the protocols, understanding how firm we are, maintaining consistency with what we do, and ensuring that all persons and parties who are going to be present within our environment abide within our rules and regulations and protocols, no matter what, as they stand. And everybody.
Definitely, they're rules. As long as we stick to the rules, we'll be fine.
Yeah. We'll protect ourselves and others. Thank you very much, John. I mean, there's a lot more, obviously, that we have to discuss, and I say maybe I could commit you to coming back on where we could break down the sports policy a bit more once it has been rolled out and everything else. And I want to break it down from your eyes now. Okay, now that we have certain things in place, what are the next steps? What are our requirements, for example, if for us who have younger children who might be interested in sports and either playing or participating in somewhere or making a career out of it? And I'm certain that there's a lot more we can talk and discuss along those lines.
Definitely, and even the role of the recently commissioned National Sport Council, for example, and how that can assist in the administration of sports here in St. Kitts.
Oh, so somewhat, can you is it okay if you can give me a little bit more of a breakdown on it?
Well, basically, I would have had the pleasure of tabling in the National Parliament some months ago the National Sport Policy, which we got technical assistance in creating from UNESCO. And coming out of that, we have identified a National Sport Council, which is a group of persons ranging sex, sporting disciplines, players, administration, officials, and we're hoping to be able to confirm these appointments in the upcoming, sometime this month.
Seem to have lost connectivity there, even if temporarily.
Hello?
Oh, yes, yeah, we missed you. We missed you there for a little bit. Sorry.
Right. So we're hoping to be able to confirm the appointment of the members of the sport council sometime this month.
Oh, okay. And this council is tasked with, I guess, putting together the overall policies and projects in terms of the different disciplines and everything else.
Correct. And trying to set up a number of different policies in relation to athletes, sports, and how we do things. Simple things like trying to establish guidelines and policies for when sporting associations bringing equipment, for example.
Yes.
And how we deal with them from a tax and a customs standpoint, and just general administration of sport.
Brilliant. Well, yeah, there definitely is a lot we have to unpick and unpack there. So I am going to touch base with you again sometime soon. and we'll catch up in terms of that. As you said, though, we had a nice little 3-1 win this afternoon. Any your thoughts on any major thoughts on the EPL race now that West Ham seems to have had a little licking to take today? Arsenal beat one of the relegation threatened teams, so they might be feeling a little good.
Well, I think it's really a race for that fourth Champions League spot. City, I think, we're just delaying the inevitable in terms of City winning the league. United is sitting very strong. For first in a long time, the favourites to win a European final.
Yes.
Imagine that. Excuse me. Chelsea has really been able to resurrect itself and sitting looking very strong. Good win yesterday over City, and so I expect them to grab that third place. And it's really a very tight race for that fourth Champions League spot. In terms of the other European spots, Arsenal is looking a bit dodgy.
Yeah, Arsenal don't look like they'll be playing Europe at all.
No, they're going to be up for the first time in 25 years or something like that.
Yeah, oh boy, they don't play like that. They don't play with that level of desperation at all. What about Chelsea putting City to the sword now in the FA Cup final now yesterday, and now have to face them possibly at Wembley? What are your predictions there?
You know what? A month ago I'd have said City all the way, but I really don't know. How to call this one. I think in order to get a better idea, we have to look at these last couple of league matches to see what kind of form both sides are in. Yes.
I think City sort of held back a little bit. I don't know if it's a mental thing, but Chelsea did make a statement in the FA Cup final by overcoming them, and it wasn't very difficult. And now we have them both set to face each other. Admittedly, on form, two of the best teams in England currently, and I guess now with COVID having struck all the other big teams in the world, they deservedly sit as Champions League finalists. We as you said have a shoe-in for Europa League. You think that is improvement with good signs still to come, or we have reached our ceiling and further changes need to be made?
No, we need to make some changes. I think the presence of Cavani has really shown the importance of that particular role. He really has another. I think he has another year in it for him.
Yes.
But beyond that, we really need to look for someone to fill that role. Harry Kane would be a good prospect, I think. But I don't know if he's there yet.
Well, if you think by next year we may have a shot at him, given how Daniel Levy has treated us in the past over his players.
Well, I think Harry's going to have to make a determination as to whether he wants to win silverware or not.
Yes.
And as it stands, Tottenham doesn't seem to be providing much prospect for that.
Agreed.
So I think it's really coming down to a personal decision for him.
And then with us now, in terms of the last few weeks of upheaval, how do you, what are your tea leaves in terms of the club and it's the way to which it does things and it's calming this entire protest and instability down?
Football, you always have these things in football. You'll be, these things are going to come up sometime. The fans are going to get to. The Glazers have been under pressure before and then became everybody's best friend. So I'm not too concerned about that. I think a solid finish at the end of the season will, sort of quash that and certainly give the fans a lot more confidence. And we make a couple of good signings over the summer. I think, we're going to be in good stead.
Yeah. Shoe in for title next year, given Liverpool probably will be back in at full strength. City, full strength. Chelsea looking ominous. How good are you feeling for us in terms of a title
I think
charge?
if we can continue gelling the way we're gelling now, Pogba and Fernandez in the midfield looking good. I think we need to, if we get a solid centre back in there to start with Harry Maguire, a little more experience on the right flank. I think we're looking good. I think we certainly up there in terms of title contender again.
Resigning Pogba?
I would.
Okay.
I would. If
Okay.
you want to go, let him go. But if he's prepared to stay, I would resign him.
And finally, De Gea or Henderson?
They're here all the way. I am not convinced by Henderson.
Till now.
David is just the best.
David does have a great record with us for the past decade or so. So do you think we can try to keep both of them into next season? Because keeping two top class keepers happy tougher.
Henderson had a good season last year. We were able to hold him, but you have two top keepers, and you can't have 12 of.
True.
And I can't see either of them wanting to be benched for too much.
Yeah.
And so I think it's going to be difficult. Some decisions are going to be hard decisions are going to have to be made.
Well, that's why he's named manager, and it's not our job to do so.
Exactly.
Thank you so very much, my brother. It's been excellent having this conversation with you. And as I said, we're going to make it a little bit more regular going forward, as long as you're willing and able, obviously, because I know you have quite a bit of time constraints. And anytime, even if you think you want to make any announcements, you're welcome as well to let me know. And it's a phone call away from scheduling as well.
Right. Anytime.
All right. Take care. And thank you very much again.
You too.
All the
Pleasure.
best.
Thank you for having me.
All right, then. Yeah. So we'll take a quick break, and then I'll rejoin you just to give a brief rundown on some of the things that we discussed, as well as the up-to-date sports as we have it over the last week or so. Be right back.
For real and unbiased sports news and reviews, from cricket to football and everything in between, with in-depth interviews from your favorite sports icons, check out The Bench Meeting, hosted by Kenneth Bob, on Sundays from 4 to 5 p.m., only on Win Media SKN.
All right, and we're back with the bench meeting, and there has been a week of sporting activity, some not all good news, I must say. The first piece of bad news is that the IPL, since our last broadcast, where we were just celebrating Kieran Pollard's scintillating knock for his team, I think within India, whilst we were announcing it here, India were preparing to postpone, from all reports, the IPL for reasons of the surge in coronavirus cases there in India. And then, in fact, the IPL itself, the bubble that had been created by the teams, had been breached, with some players, such as Pradesh Krishna, testing positive for COVID-19. He was a member of the KKR. So at this point, they are trying to look for different locations, by such as Sri Lanka and other options, to host or to finish the IPL. Some of the Australian players, for example, they were banned from coming back home and threatened with imprisonment, was one of the major headlines coming out of Australia because of the surge. And my heart really goes out to the persons in India who are going through, I guess, what Brazil and Italy, much obviously to a much lesser extent, had been going through in the beginning and toward the middle of the pandemic. And the surges that we are seeing there and the deaths that we are seeing there is really, really frightening. And we do send our prayers and best wishes to persons who have families in India. And we hope that they are all following as many the protocols as are available to put in place, make sure and put them in place and maintain their safety during this time of crisis. But the IPL will go on, and I don't know whether or not it will happen before the CPL. The times I think that has been mentioned is October, November, late September, October, or November. And I'm certain that these gentlemen have the wherewithal to stage the conclusion of this competition once they can actually find the necessary location. So that's the only bit of bad news I have for the sports fans. We still had some more exciting news in terms of the CPL, where up to this point we knew of the Dwayne Bravo Dinesh Ramdin swap. Dwayne has since come out and made this public in numerous different forums, and kudos to him, and well done SKN Patriots in acquiring him. There was also some rumors about Chris being retained, but I got as well, as I said, but there's nothing confirmed there. But it would be gorgeous to have Chris. I mean, I know another person's not even Carlos Brathwaite fans, but there's a lot in there for me that I still wouldn't mind having Carlos in my team as a former captain and somebody who took time to understand SKN as a Patriot. So if I could give anybody a little tickle, it would be like, I mean, I know he was never the most consistent, but there were times when the passion he fought with and for the SKM Patriots was really contagious. And the teams had mean-spirited to victories, I think, under his leadership, where many of the fans thought that it was not even possible. And he still remains one of my favorite players, along with Evan Lewis as a Patriot. Unfortunately, we didn't have him with us last season. Evan Lewis is our son. He started out with us, and he has remained with us. So that's our star. That's and then so he's going to remain with us. It seems Lendl is already going back to Trinidad, so we're gonna have to get a opener. It would have been good to have Gail partner Evan, and that would be a nice way to win Gail his last CPL trophy. Anyways, I'm not going to spend too much time fantasizing on what the Patriots can and will or will not do as it relates to the upcoming CPL. Needless to say, I'm very excited about it, and there's great opportunity, especially because it's being hosted at Warner Park, for us to really make an impression as the St. Kitts Nevis Patriots. We went as far as the final. I believe we've got it this time to take it all the way. We've been knocking at the door. Last season wasn't our best, but I believe part of it is because a lot of the players that a lot of our stars had not played with us, and this would have been Riyadh's first year with us, and it takes a little bit of understanding, St. Kitts. It takes a little understanding our rhythm, understanding how we do things, especially as it relates to sport. But I think once you understand us, you understand that our passion is as equally as powerful as any other franchise, and he didn't understand that at the point last year. I think going into this year, that bit more improvement will be noted on his part and some of the teammates who are retained. Again, I keep getting dragged into my hypotheticals as it relates to the Patriots, but yes, needless to say, IPL cancelled, CPL coming up. Lots of excitement in terms of cricket and for cricket fans. Now, on to the EPL, where we just saw the conclusion of Arsenal beating West Brom. I must put a note in that West Brom, I was actually giving them a little bit of support in the beginning of the season, because Romain Sawyers played, or St. Kitts Nevis Nationals, Romain Sawyers played with them. And he was actually playing with the first team and had a few, one or two reasonable appearances in West Brom first team for the EPL, and it would have been record breaking, I think, as a Kittitian to have done so. So therefore, they obviously got a little bit of latent support outside of my support for Manchester United because of that. Unfortunately, I noted that Romain was not even named on the bench. And I haven't gotten any word in terms of injury. I don't think he's injured. And I knew that with Sam coming on, that he fell out of favor with Sam quite early in Sam's reign. So it's quite unfortunate that this is how his Premier League spell has, or is seemingly ending. And I do hope that there is a way of him being able to find a new breath of life, either at another EPL team, or even if it's a championship team, but a team where he's given the opportunity to express himself once more and to play the kind of football that brought him to the level of the EPL with West Brom this season. They're obviously going to be relegated back into the championship next season. And as I said, Arsenal, who has now begun to reflect a more mid-table type team, such as Everton, they come away with a win. But I believe that Arteta very well may be given the time to reshape this team in the way in which he wants, and knowing how mingy Arsenal board usually is in terms of spending money. I don't think that they're going to want to spend money in terms of switching coaches and then have to now switch players and everything else. But yeah, kudos to them. Arsenal 3-1. Then I don't think you're as impressed, or I think your fans are about as impressed as I am. Early in the day, as Jonal mentioned, we had a come from behind 3-1 win. As in I mean Manchester United. We have now been crowned the comeback kings, because this is now 10 times for this season that we've come from deficits to win matches. And apparently this is a record. And in doing so, we also have a record of going 25 games or 28 games unbeaten away. And in doing so, winning today, Mason Greenwood scores means that he has overtaken Wayne Rooney in terms of goals scored for the first team by a teenager. And all of this happened in this very exciting 3-1 win over Aston Villa. And I think that whilst it's exciting, I am not confident that we're going to be any closer to the title next season, barring some incredulous transfers, business, and change of coach. So I tend not to get as excited. In terms of us, the one thing we can get excited over is a Europa League win, and if we are able to do that, then kudos to the team. But I mean, because of all of the unrest, unlike John, I'm not as optimistic about the unrest and the direction that the Glazers are taking the club, and I'm not confident that their continuation and stubborn continuation is going to be for the betterment of the team performances and the club in terms of its championships and trophies being won. Needless to say, it was a hearty 3-1 win, Manchester United. We also had Chelsea putting Man City to the sword, as John would have mentioned. And this is a title. This is not a title defying or a title defining victory by any means. I think Mr. Tuchel has definitely turned Chelsea around. I think that I am of the teams now going into next season that I think will be in with a shout for not just top four, but even title aspirations would be this Chelsea under Thomas Tuchel. Even though it's early days and you're always going to get that new manager bounce and teams will figure him out a little bit more by next season, and the second season is always the most difficult, these guys are looking imperious on both fronts, defensively, and they're looking quite cutting edge now after all of the shade being thrown at Mr. Tino Werner, or Werner as would be pronounced because he is German. He has actually brought quite a bit of quality to Chelsea, even though he has not necessarily been given the necessary recognition for the work that he's done. But I believe right now his contributions are something like both in excess of 10 for goals and assists for the season. And that in itself means that in some way or the other, he contributed to some 20 to 25 goals and that has been scored for Chelsea for their season. And if you have a striker that can give you 25 goals in a season, then you have a very good striker. So kudos to the young man. There has been a lot of negative press around him throughout the season, and it's good to see him being able to push through. Similarly, even Paul Pogba, there's always been a lot of negative press around this young man for some reason, but when he's there and he's performing, the entire team plays better, but he never gets the recognition. However, if the team underperforms and he's part of it, then he gets the complete blame. And I think Timo kind of also has to deal with that type of pressure, and kudos for him for being able to manage it and coming out on top and actually making Chelsea serious contenders. Maybe not for the title this season, but definitely look like title contenders next season. And now you have an opportunity within one season, playing at a club, to win a Champions League. But it is not going to be that easy because you do have to overcome Pep Guardiola, whom I still think remains one of the best coaches, if not the best coach currently in the world. Is he a bit of a pain? Yes, it's kind of hard to like him because of his success, and because of in the sense that he had the ability to win championships even when all of the odds were stacked against him. Yet, because he had Messi, you almost think that he has been sort of elevated because of the brilliance of Messi to a large extent, and he kind of lived off of the glories. That's the word I'm trying. That's his statement. He lived off of Messi's glories and brilliance, and he was able to establish himself as an elite coach. But then, in going to Bayern, winning trophies and stuff like that, people still question his credentials because he was never able to bring them a Champions League trophy. Coming over at City, transforming City into perennial title winners, you've earned my respect, Mr. Guardiola. It is not that easy to do that, especially with what was then a very crowded English Premier League top flight. You were given the support that was required, and you, in due time, delivered. Where once every 2 seasons, you have put your hands on an EPL trophy. And this year, you have the opportunity to put your hands on that elusive Champions League trophy, and most pundits would be foolish to bet against you doing so this year, having built City for this purpose, for this said purpose now for the past 3 to 4 seasons that you have been there, because we all know that is City's ultimate ambition. That's why they've made the investment in yourself. That's why they've made the investment in the team to be world conquerors. And, you're one game away, as some would have it, one hand on the trophy, but still 90 plus minutes away from it as well too. So this loss to Chelsea on the weekend is not necessarily something that you would feel very good about. And needless to say, you're going to win the EPL, but you really need to start winning some games to put your team back in the momentum necessary to put your hands on the Champions League trophy. So if we thought, however, that the EPL is interesting, we should slide right on over to some of our other European leagues to really see where things are beginning to shape up. Now, Barcelona and Atletico Madrid played a 0-0 draw yesterday, a very mean-spirited match. What has happened? And then currently, Real Madrid, last I checked, were down 1-0 to 2-1 to Sevilla. So Real had the opportunity to go level on points with Atletico Madrid, and at this point, they are going to be they seem to be squandering this opportunity, and this leaves Atletico with, I'm not certain how many games in hand. Maybe I could look at the fixture list briefly, but I think it's very few games in hand, and 2 points above Barcelona, 3 points ahead of Real Madrid, and we are looking at what? Probably about another 2 fixture days, yeah. 2 fixture days. It ends on the 23rd of May, where Atletico will be away to Real Valladolid. Real Madrid would be home to Villarreal, which would be a very tough match. Barcelona will come up against Eibar. That's the last match day. Barcelona has Celta Vigo at home to tangle with. That's going to be a tough match for them. Real Madrid would have to go against Athletic Bilbao. That they should get over that. And Atletico Madrid is playing Osasuna at home, which should mean that, they have Real Sociedad on the 12th of May next week. So it doesn't seem as if there's a lot stopping Atletico after holding Barcelona to a 0-0 draw, and now you also have the situation where Real is drawing with or losing to Sevilla, that you have the opportunity to win someone outside of the Barcelona, Real Madrid, 2-team monopoly in the Spanish La Liga would be shattered in 2021. Was it COVID? Some might argue yes. I think that COVID did expose a lot of ugly undersides, especially financially, with Barcelona and Real Madrid, and they do not have the squads that they normally would have. All of their squads are aging for the most part, and rebuilding is going to take some time for them. So, in terms of the Spanish La Liga, that's how it's shaping up, with 3 match days to go. I also wanted to look at the Italian league. Okay, where have we got? Serie A? Yep. Because, first of all, congratulations to Inter Milan. And after they have officially, yes, I wanted to confirm it, they have officially taken hold of the Serie A title for 2020-2021. They are clear after 35 games on 85 points, with the nearest team to them, Atalanta. They drew and are on 72 points, so mathematically it is impossible for Atalanta to overtake them now, and they were bursting the champagne since earlier up this last week. Napoli is in 3rd position on 72 points, and as far as I'm aware, today AC Milan would have dealt Juventus a serious blow in terms of their aspirations to be able to be in the top four. So after winning Serie A last season, Juventus are now in the position where they may not win. They may even make top four. Not win. They may not even make top four. Let me just confirm that result. Saturday 8th. Yes, 3-0, full time. Juventus, AC Milan. So, Juventus right now are in danger of losing a top four position. And for the first time in, again, probably about a decade or more, Inter Milan, I guess this would be since Jose Mourinho's days, would have won under Antonio Conte the Serie A title. Now, this is news has significance for two reasons. Firstly, very personal for me in the sense that former Manchester United players currently grace the squad of the champions of Italy. So it's almost like you won on the strength of the likes of Lukaku, Ashley Young, Matteo Darmian, and less or so Alexis Sanchez. So it almost feels like a Manchester United win. I am very happy for those lads. They served us well at their time, except Sanchez. I was pretty happy to see him leave. And kudos to them for winning the team, winning the Serie A, except Sanchez, because I don't really know how that man even gets the type contracts that he gets. Anyways, like Arsenal, I guess we got what we deserved. And the match, this result in terms of Juventus not being in Serie A has additional significance in the sense that along with the upheaval in Spain with Real Madrid and Barcelona not winning the La Liga title as well, goes to show the rationale behind the teams, those very same teams, in there trying to push and still trying to push for the European Super League. So those teams all were suffering from the same issues. We could not have fans in the stadiums. Mind you, these are issues that would have faced all teams, but these teams were built with salary structures, wage structures, and other superfluous arrangements that tended to affect their financials every single year. But because they were backed by buoyant economy for the most part, and for Real Madrid they were backed, I think, by the Bank of Spain. Juventus equally backed by its benefactors, Barcelona and Catalonia and their Catalans and their arrangements and everything else. Everybody knew that those three clubs especially, their financials left a lot to be desired, and their squads were aging with very big contracts. So, but Real Madrid in particular has not really been able to refresh its squad, with the exception of Eden Hazard, who has been a complete flop for them over the past few years. Barcelona, they as well struggle to really recruit the best of the best anymore because they don't have the financial wherewithal to be able to get these persons. And then you're still trying to maintain Messi, who even going into retirement is still going to try and demand the highest salaries in the world. I mean, he's basically gave you most of the success that you've earned over the last decade or so why not, throw the entire kitchen sink at him and hope the other players who are willing to come and play with him will be able to take less. But the fact of the matter is, all three of these teams had very financial based motivations for joining the European Super League. The English teams, lesser so. Their motivation was more so, yes, teams like Arsenal and Tottenham, obviously they would best be excellent to have $100 million guaranteed for their appearance in any competition for that matter. But the miscalculation I think that the European Super League had was that those teams would have been moved strictly by as easily by financial considerations. In Spain, maybe so. In Italy, for many, we all know that there have always been, some sort of a monopoly, not some in some instances, some kind of mafia style monopoly on football in countries like Italy and Spain, and their influence on the football and the football leagues, and that's unsustainable in any circumstances. And now under COVID, it has exacerbated these wounds and exposed the inner workings of some of these clubs, and maybe it serves to press the reset button on world football, where these teams need to go back to the drawing board and start to reshape teams. The Real Academy at one point in time was very well hailed. The Barcelona Academy, where Messi and such came from, Piqué. Otherwise, other Barcelona greats, that was always a very good academy. Start using your academy some more. Bring through some homegrown talent, and not have these inflated salaries and payments of players that end up coming and flopping you anyway. All right, so that's me. Sorry, forgive me. That's me and my brief discussions with you this afternoon. I didn't want to touch NBA because that requires some further discussion and analysis, and I'll leave that for next week and try and get a guest on board for that. Forgive me up here. Anyways, I'd like to say good afternoon to one and all. Having a bit of a problem here. Forgive that intermission. It was all just to say a hearty good afternoon to everyone. And thank you for joining us on the bench meeting. Have a pleasant afternoon to one and all.
For real and unbiased sports news and reviews, from cricket to football and everything in between, with in-depth interviews from your favorite sports icons, check out The Bench Meeting